How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to City Skylines, welcome back to Plazas and Promenades, and welcome back to the city of Nerdholm. In the last episode, we completely flattened and bulldozed an entire downtown district, and we replaced it with this. This is Nerdminster. It is the center of law and order and government within not just the city of Nerdholm, but also what I'm affectionately calling Nerdholm County. And I say that because between the last episode and today's episode, I have spent a little bit of time placing some roads out in the countryside. We now have some little national roads that go through forests. We have new highway intersections. We have a better connection to Nerdholm Castle. And even though it's not finalized and it will probably change again, it's definitely better than what we had before. Now, another thing that I've been doing between this episode and the last one is paying close attention to what my traffic's doing, specifically along the roads that come off of this roundabout. And the reason I'm doing that is because I noticed that every now and then traffic will back up around this roundabout. And a lot of that traffic tends to be made up of these guys right here. And there's 5 of them, almost to prove my point. The biofuel garbage trucks, whilst absolutely essential, are causing a bit of a traffic nightmare around Nerdholm. So much so that I had to break a rule that I set for myself at the start of this series. Now, if you've watched me play City Skylines on YouTube before, you might be aware that in the past I would regularly overuse the lane connector from Traffic Manager. And with this series, what I've been trying to do is use the lane arrows a lot more because they're just a little bit more simple. All I have to do is control-click on an intersection and it's basically good to go. Whereas the lane connector is a little bit more crazy and it deals with all these lines that can be painted around the place and it gets a little bit chaotic. So chaotic, in fact, that people told me not to use it, but then I did. I did this. I made this. This was me. And I'm not proud of it. I don't think it looks amazing. Obviously, we don't have to see this all the time, but this was because of how much traffic was backing up in all of these spaces. So pretty much around Nerdminster, I've gone a little bit crazy with the lane connectors, but it actually has worked. It's solved some of the problems because the problems that we were having, well, there were 2 of them. Number 1 was just the amount of traffic, and number 2 was the amount of traffic that was trying to change lanes at inconvenient times. So what I've done, as you might have noticed, is I've said that traffic cannot change lane along this road at all, but traffic coming from the top here can just go to whatever lane it needs to go to. So it just gets in lane and stays in lane. Traffic coming from here can use this central lane or either lane on either side to pick where it's going. And then these 2 rightmost lanes turn right into their respective lanes and they've already chosen where they're going, so it's a bit of a non-issue. Essentially, forcing traffic to make decisions a little bit sooner has stopped it from tailing back from this intersection all the way back to here, which is what I was seeing. And it's allowed us to have a traffic flow of 77%, which isn't amazing. It's still not ideal, but I think I have a solution for it. Not too far from that intersection and even closer to the roundabout, we have Willow Hills, which is our main industrial district. And in Willow Hills, we have 9 recycling centers, each of which can pump out 19 garbage trucks, meaning that at any one time there could theoretically be 171 biofuel garbage trucks coming and going from this district, which means that those 171 trucks are most likely to hit the roundabout and then go around Nerdminster to get to wherever they're going. Now, that's not to say that having all of those recycling centers in Willow Hills is a bad thing, but in a city where I've been trying to build with design and intrigue and just a bit of flair, Willow Hills is fairly uninspired. It's a little bit boring. So today, I want to try and fix that. I want to try and get away from just slapping different things down in Willow Hills, and that's part of the reason I came out and built all of these roads. I want to build a county recycling center. Specifically, I want to come in here and build a recycling center. And there's two reasons I want to do that. Number one, it's going to look cool. And number two, it's going to help with the traffic problems that we're seeing because we have all of these highway connections. And the highway has all of these connections to the city, which means that the trucks will have several options for getting onto the highway, but more importantly, they have several options for how they get into the city, meaning that they don't have to hit just this roundabout or just this road. They can go along the highway and go through Oak Garden, or they can go past Highland Hills or Smith Square, or if they really wanted to, they could hit these little roads out here and go through Vermont District in Dale Hills. So that's going to be a lot better for traffic flow, and I think it's going to make things a little bit easier for us. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is clear a bunch of trees, which is the easy part of this entire project. And the second thing we need to do is figure out what this is going to look like. So I've spent a bit of time around the internet and just looking around to see if I can find any examples of recycling center layouts that might be interesting for cities' skylines. And I happened across semanticscholar.org and specifically a paper entitled Improving the Layout of Recycling Centers by Use of Lean Production Principles. And in this paper, I found some kind of illustration that displays a theoretical, hypothetical recycling center, and I like this as a layout. It has one way in, two ways out, it circles around, it has space for garden waste, packaging, office stuff, electronics, appliances, tires, etc., etc. And I thought this would be a really interesting way to lay out some kind of recycling center in cities' skylines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by using the 2-lane gravel roads just as a means to get an idea of what this could look like. And I think what I'm going to do is go from about here, and we'll have this be our entrance, but for now we're going to start here, and we'll go, say, 6 units, and we'll go and do, I guess, another 6 units there. So we have a way in, this will eventually be a way out, and we also probably want these to be able to cross over. So what I'm also going to do is this, so that this particular way out can loop around back into the rest of the center. So let's go ahead and select that segment, and we'll just do something a bit like that. It's not going to line up perfectly, but that'll be just fine. So you can sort of come down here and loop around to go back into the rest of the center. We'll go another 3 units here, and then we'll do a little 4x4, maybe 135 degree curve right about there. Let's actually say 120 degrees. That should be, yeah, that should be pretty good. We'll do 120 degrees right there. This guy is going to be a 2x2, 180 degree turn, and that's just fine. And this guy is going to go straight over. Let's say something like 10 units, and I want it to branch. So we're going to have, say, 135 there, and we'll continue straight on right about here. So this little road is going to head towards the garden waste, concrete and excavated material section, which is essentially going to be a bunch of landfills. That's basically all they're going to be. So we'll do something like this, and that's where that can head to. This might need rotated, which is honestly okay. We can use Move It to do that. But this is, like I said, garden waste and things like that. And this guy is going to, I guess, loop around. So we'll do a little 4x4, maybe a little 5x5 here would be a little bit better. And we'll do another 5x5 right here. And this will bring us down towards the space where we can put things like packaging and newspapers, office supplies, electronics, etc., etc. And all I really need to do here is have these two guys link up, and I could make this a little bit more of a curve, which I'll probably do, although I might just use node controller to do it. So all I really need to do is set this to 20, and it's a little bit more gentle. And then this guy just needs to connect back to here. So let's see if we can do that. I kind of want this to be a bit of a right angle because I need some landfills up here. But I also want this guy to connect straight down so that this will also serve as an exit. So how exactly I'm going to do this, I'm not too sure, but I think all I really need to do is bring these little segments back a little bit. And I don't know if that's actually going to work once I turn these into actual roads, but this is sort of the layout that I'm thinking for this entire thing. So this, I guess we can swap it out for one-way roads. This right here is, wait, do I have left-hand drive traffic or right-hand drive traffic? I have left-hand drive traffic. And I've just built this thing with the idea of right-hand drive traffic in mind. Okay, well that complicates things ever so slightly. I guess in theory, if I wanted to, I could have them come in here and then that's a way out. That's also a way in, but I don't know about that. Oh man, I need to flip this, which I have discovered is actually a thing in Move It. You can click mirror objects, click on this, and that will just give me a mirror image of the entire thing, which I can rotate around and suddenly we have what I need. So we'll go ahead and just get rid of this original version down here, and we'll move this new left-hand drive focused version to, well, I guess anywhere really. We'll put it, say, here, I think will be just fine. So we'll go ahead and move it back a little bit. And I'm realizing this needs to be more of a U shape. So let's actually take that out and let's see what we can do. I think a little 2x2 and 2x2 right there should be fine. And then all I need to do is 4 and 4, and then just ever so slightly adjust these segments so that they're not quite clipping and fighting the way that they were. So now what we can do is change this guy to be a one-way road that comes in and goes the entire way around. This is going to be towards landfills. This is going to be looping around like so. And that is essentially the loop that traffic is going to be able to take in here. So they can go to the landfill. This will come straight out down here. We'll say something like this. And I'm sure we can get a lovely sort of exit right about there. And that'll work just fine. And then over here is pretty much the same idea. We're going to have a way in right there, a way out right there. And I just ever so slightly need to fix this road because that is not behaving at all. I might actually need to make this a little bit different. I'm not too sure this is going to behave all that well. Let's turn off node selections and see if I can do this. Is this going to be something that's is it going to behave? I don't think it is. Although there might have actually been a bit of, I think there might have been a bit of the gravel road in there. So I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's just go ahead and keep this simple. We'll do a straight shot over like that. We'll grab the segment and we'll just sort of bend it down like this. It's not the prettiest looking thing. It is a little bit ugly, but it kind of does the job. And I'm pretty sure Node Controller can fix this for me. So we'll straighten this up. We'll straighten this up. And I think if we just go ahead and use Traffic Manager to turn off some of the pedestrian crossings, it will work just fine. So that's exactly what we'll go ahead and do. In fact, we don't really need any pedestrian crossings down here, so we'll turn all of those off. And aside from a little bit of concrete that we can see through there, that's honestly not too bad. So we'll just move this a little bit to get rid of those concrete sections that you can see, and that's perfect. So you can come in here, you go to everywhere that you need to go, you can exit down here, or you can exit down here, or you can loop around and do your thing. So this is the approximate layout of what I want to do. But what I also want to do is clearly define this space. So I'm going to try and use the network multi-tool, specifically the create parallel mode, to create a series of parallel fences along this road. So basically this, is what we're looking for. And that is pretty solid, and that is kind of perfect. So we'll go ahead and press enter to create that fence, and that's actually perfect. All I need to do is grab this little node right here and bring it back so it's not in the middle of that road, and suddenly we have a fence that nicely follows everything that we have. We'll bring this one back as well, and that's absolutely perfect. Now, what I'd also like to do is the same thing down here, because it is going to be important that this entire space is enclosed. It is essentially some kind of government type facility. So we'll go ahead and press enter again, and we'll use the move it mod to grab this guy and bring it back. And we'll use move it once again to grab this guy and bring this guy back a little bit as well. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but it does hug that road really nicely, and it does enclose the space, which again is going to be really important. And speaking of move it, let's actually grab all of these road nodes and go ahead and level them so that they're all the same height, because that's going to be another little important detail, is that this space is relatively flat. Also interesting that it's going uphill at this end, but that's honestly okay. Let's go ahead and just hit it with a smoothing brush so that everything inside of the facility is basically up on a hill, which again is kind of okay. I am going to surround this with trees. That's going to be part of the plan here, is to surround this entire thing with some trees so that it's, I don't want to say a part of the forest. It's a nasty old recycling center, but it's going to be a part of the forest. So now that a decent chunk of the fences are done, let's go ahead and start looking at the buildings we're going to be putting in here. And we're going to be starting with an actual landfill site. And this is essentially going to be what we imagine to be the garden waste, concrete, and excavated material section of the landfill. And so what we'll do here is just go ahead and place it, I want to say, right about there. And to be honest, I'm really tempted to try and get two of these guys in here. Now, the reason I placed it right there is because I can actually grab this node and just bring it right up to the side of the landfill. And then we can just imagine, if I actually shuffle the landfill over a little bit, we can just imagine that the landfill is continuing the wall the entire way around. So we don't need fences to surround the landfill. But I do think, in all honesty, it might be a great idea to have a second one. I really do. So let's just do this. Let's grab a second landfill and we'll put it right about there. We can use move it to shuffle it over just a little bit. And I don't really want the overlap right there. Although I am tempted to say that if we do have that overlap, we could maybe say that that section in the middle is a third sort of landfill site. So this one could be garden waste, this one is concrete, this one's excavated material. Obviously it all looks the same, but we can pretend, we can imagine, and that's sort of what it's all about. So let's do a little 135 curve right there. Let's rotate this guy around. And I guess let's go back into here. Let's get ourselves this fence, and let's use the network multi-tool to give ourselves another little parallel section of fence right about there. And I guess, actually, what I could do is use the network multi-tool to bring the fence around, something a bit like that. In fact, I could bring it up to there as well if I wanted, which I do want to do. So, now that we have that going on, all I need to do is bring this node up just a little bit to about there. And then I need to just grab the node from wherever it is. I think it's right about there. And bring it right back to the corner of the landfill. And so the landfills are now a part of the wall. Although I have to be honest, I kind of want the connection to the landfills to come off of this corner. So let's actually take out all the fences again. Let's take out this connection here, and let's get ourselves a little section of road that's going to go from here, going straight up. This guy's going to go straight over like that. We'll bulldoze you, and we'll just go ahead and flip these one-way roads. And all I should need to do is grab this segment and just bring it back a little bit. We'll grab you, and well, I hope this actually works. There we go. So something a little bit like that. Nothing too crazy, but just a little change to the intersection. And then if we use node controller, we can hopefully tidy that up a little bit. We absolutely can. We'll bring this guy forward, and that sort of looks okay to me. It's nothing too fancy, nothing too crazy, but it means that the trucks can go straight on, straight over, straight out, and everything should be fine. It means that this road here is most likely going to be dedicated to anyone going down to the other parts of the facility, of which there are hopefully going to be several. Now, something I've been very tempted to use in this entire facility is the waste processing complex, which sends out waste transfer trucks to pick up garbage from waste transfer facilities and landfill sites for further processing into energy and recycled materials. This complex cannot directly collect garbage from buildings, however, but that's okay because that's where the waste transfer facility comes in. It uses garbage trucks to collect and temporarily store garbage. That stored waste can then be picked up by waste transfer trucks from the waste processing complex. This building also pollutes less, so this could, in theory, be built closer to our city center. And that's basically what my idea would be for Willow Hills and any of our more, I guess, downtown type areas. I would very much like to go into a densely packed commercial zone or an office zone and try to maybe hide some of the waste transfer facilities. Now, you can see, looking at it, it does pollute and, a lot of a smaller radius, diameter, radius is the word I'm looking for, than something like this guy, or this guy, or this guy. It has the smallest radius of pollution out of any of them, which is fantastic. So basically, as I mentioned, it will temporarily store garbage. It doesn't process it. So it'll send a truck out. The truck will bring garbage back to this building, and then trucks from the complex, which is the larger building, this one right here, will come along and pick up the garbage from the transfer facility, bring it back to the complex, and turn it into both power and recycled material. The problem with all of that is that the waste processing complex is huge. It takes up a lot more space than I was hoping to take up in any of this. It's almost too big, but at the same time, I feel like it would be worth having out here just because of how good it could be in the long run. So I think I'm going to take this risk. It's $100,000. It is $5,400 per week. We are sitting on $6.1 million in the minute, so I think we're going to take this risk. We're going a little bit off script, but we're going to take this risk, and it's a pretty cool looking building, to be quite honest. So we'll go for this guy. It's going to send out some trucks, and interestingly, what it's going to do is actually have those trucks come out and U-turn so that they can head to the landfills, and they will pick up garbage from the landfills to then go and turn it into power at this facility itself. So they will actually loop around and produce power and recycled goods, which I think will be kind of cool. Now, in terms of other buildings that are going to go into this facility, what I'd like to do is get some recycling centers. This is still supposed to be some kind of recycling complex thing, so I have some choices for these. I was actually thinking right here would be a really cool little spot for a recycling center, but it seems silly to have it right next to this giant thing. So I almost figure putting them across the street might be a bit better, and doing something like this with them would give us the ability for them to sort of loop around. These guys can sort of head out that way. These guys can sort of head out that way, and that'll be pretty good. So that's basically what we're going to do. And it also gives me some space for something that I recently got from the Steam Workshop. I finally caved, and I finally got myself parking lot roads, because I've just needed them for the longest time. And so what I can finally do is go and put a little section of road right about here, and then I can go and do something like this. And it's a little cramped in there. I'd have to move these buildings around, I think, but parking lot roads are kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. I know I'm late to the party on that one. I know everyone's been using parking lot roads for the longest time, but yeah, they're pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. they're actually a pretty cool thing. I don't think I don't know if I've ever used these before. That's That's maybe a little sad in a way. Like, everyone and their mother has been using parking lot roads forever. And I'm sitting here like, oh man, let me tell you about this, this really cool thing. Have you ever heard of this thing called parking lot roads? Oh my God. Like, every City Skylines YouTuber for the last few years has been like, yep, parking lot roads, completely essential. And here's me, you know, several years late to the party. Hey, guys, let me tell you about this cool mod that I found. But what is cool is I also found a mod that allows me to have the parking lots actually snap to this thing, which makes my life so much easier. So we're going to go ahead and just place this guy right about there. We'll put one right about there, and we'll go ahead and place, I guess, a bunch of these guys, and a single little parking lot right there at the end. And those are actually functional. I'm not really sure if anyone's going to need them or use them out here, but they are functional, and that's pretty cool to me. So that's a little parking lot, I guess, is what that is. Now, something else I would like to do in this space to add just a little bit more detail is go ahead and get some kind of warehouse. And I'm thinking I'm going to use the small warehouse, which looks like this. Now, this doesn't really serve any purpose when it comes to managing recycling and garbage, but it does look interesting. And that's kind of what I'm going for. It has this yard, it has this building, it looks like it could process something, and that's what's important about it. Now, I don't just want to slap this on that road. What I'd actually like to do is go and put some kind of road like this right about, say, here. And that's going to let me place the warehouse facing the large building here. And it's also going to give me this space where, if I wanted to, I could go and place a bunch more parking lots, which, spoiler, I do want to do. Something like this. Nothing too crazy, but that'll be pretty good for us. In fact, it looks like we're going to have to move this building along just ever so slightly. So we'll move this guy to, I want to say about there. It doesn't really have to be, I don't have to worry about this corner at all. So really, I could just move it over even further to get it away from the parking lot. And the parking lot honestly looks okay. I am going to keep this section of road down here because if I don't, we get this weird sort of curve leading into the parking lot. And maybe, well, maybe actually this could be a little section of parking lot as well. Although that also looks kind of hideous. I'm not going to lie. It's not great looking. So I think, no, we're going to stick with the road with the median there. So we have this nice corner. And what we can also do is just extend that parking lot back a little bit so it's a little bit larger. And I think this will be good. I think it'll be a pretty good use of the space. So let's go ahead and just try and get a good few parking lots in here. We'll start with maybe something a little bit bigger, maybe bigger again. Nope, not that big. We'll go with this guy, and we'll go ahead and do one right there, and, well, actually, I wonder if we should do... No, we'll just do it this way. We don't really want to go with these guys. We don't really want to go with these guys. We'll go with this, and we'll just dot a bunch of these all the way through here with that last little one down there at the end. And that is all going to be functional parking. So that's going to fill up that space. It's going to give space for workers in the warehouse and in the waste processing complex. We have space for workers in the recycling centers. And I'm not going to bother with parking next to the landfills. Although I could, I suppose. I guess it wouldn't hurt to put a little bit of parking space just next to the landfills. So we'll do something like this, and I want to shuffle it over just a little bit so it's sort of up against the landfills so that we don't have that sort of green space between them. And we'll bring this back a little bit, and let's see, does snapping work? It absolutely does. And what we need to do here, very simply, is this, and a bunch of these guys just in here. And again, that's going to give us a beautiful, well, beautiful might not be the word here, but certainly a little bit of parking. And we'll level that out because these landfills are going to be leveled as well. And that's pretty good. So people can park there, work in the landfills, park there, work in recycling, park there, work in these buildings. And that's about it in terms of actual functional buildings. But I do want to put some additional detail in here. I'm not really done yet. And I don't think this is necessarily going to replace everything that we have going on in the city right now. I don't think this is going to replace the 9 recycling centers in our existing industrial district, but it's a start. Now, before we go ahead and continue to detail this, let's actually get it working. So we're going to need to get water to every little part of this, which is going to be relatively easy. Nothing too major in that particular regard. We'll just run some pipes like so, and that covers pretty much everything. This little bit down here will be just fine. Although I guess what we could do is bring some pipes sort of down and underneath these roads, just a little bit like this. And then all I'm going to do, to be super lazy, is run a pipe right out to there, and that should be just fine. And what's interesting about this is that it doesn't need a power connection for 2 reasons. Number 1, power goes through roads, and number 2, this guy, well, if it was working, would be outputting power. But what's cool is we have all of these trucks going out and doing their thing. And essentially, because of that, we should start to see all of the trucks hitting the highway in a bunch of different locations and just filtering. Like I talked about, they should start filtering out into the city that little bit better. But before we go and look at all of that, let's actually go ahead and say that this guy is going to be full of commercial zone goods. And let's figure out what this place is going to look like in terms of these last little bits of detail. Nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy, but I do kind of want some offices in here. As weird as that might be, because I do want people coming up here. So I'm going to zone some offices there, except this time around, I'm actually going to select the building that I want because I can do that. And I want something that's going to just fit the space. It doesn't need to be anything huge. It shouldn't really be anything huge. It probably shouldn't be something like this. But this guy is actually pretty good. This guy as well is actually probably even better. So maybe that one. We've got this guy as well, which is pretty good too, actually. It's a bit on the lower side, but honestly not bad. This guy's a bit too fancy. This guy is a bit too sci-fi. So I think actually, ooh, I do like that one, but the tables and the roof is a little bit much. This one's also pretty functional looking, actually. So let's do that one. Let's just go for that guy, and we'll set it to be an historical building, and that way it should build up. It'll look the part, and it'll fit in there kind of nicely, and that'll give a little bit of functionality here. It'll bring a few people out this way who can work in this space, and honestly, it looks pretty cool. I'm not really too sure that anyone's going to love working there, but it's kind of a cool looking thing, and I do kind of like it. Now, let's go back to the network multi-tool, because I want to try a little something here. I want to use the concrete retaining walls to build and essentially outline this entire space, if I possibly can, which I'm not 100% sure it's going to work all that nicely, but that's actually pretty good there. So we'll go ahead and approve that, and then all I need to do is connect all of this together. So let's turn off all of the guides. We'll bring this guy down to here, connect you to there, and now all I need to do is grab this node and I guess put it there. We need to bring this node back to about there. And I guess this comes down just a little bit further. I'm not 100% sure if this is going to look the way I want it to, but my goal here is to essentially have a bit of a curb going around as much of this as I possibly can. So this, by the looks of it, as far as I'm concerned, needs to come back a little bit. This guy can be sort of squared off just a little bit more. This guy can be brought over just a little bit more. And then all I need to do is go and say that I only want to select the fences, and I only want to grab all of these guys in here. We can level them to this height and then bring them down to, I want to say about there. Now, it's not perfect. It's not right on the sidewalk, and actually that does kind of bother me, and that's something I can fix, actually. So let's do that again. Let's very quickly just do that again, because all I need to do is select all of this again and use the controls that we can see on screen. So I need to use either minus or equals to change the offset. So if I hit minus, it brings it closer to the sidewalk. It puts it on the sidewalk, but that might be better. Shift and X, Control and X. I don't understand exactly what this means. Control X. I have no idea. I kind of want this. Ah, there we go. So I can sort of control the offset a little bit better. So if I just hold control, I can get that to be perfect. Right about there. And that is exactly where I want that to be. So that is actually perfect. So what we'll do is we'll do this, and we just need to get this all curved really nicely once again. And so now that all of the curbs are in, let's go ahead and start detailing this space with a few trees, which might be a little bit weird for a space like this, but I do think it's going to need them, and I do think it should have them because it's going to make it look that little bit better, that little bit more official, and it's going to help set it apart from the relatively wild forest that's going to be right next to it. So we'll go for the generic pine tree, which has very much become a bit of a favorite of mine since starting Nerdholm. And I think what we'll do is space them out just a little bit further, something kind of like this. And what I'd like to do is bring this right back to, I think, about there. In fact, let's do about here, and we'll do a large oak tree in that space. We should also probably just extend this a little bit and then bring the whole thing back just a smidge so that we can get this tree to be, well, actually, you know what? We'll do the giant oak tree at this end as well. So we'll cut right about there. And I think what we'll do is bring these a little closer together because I would like a tree to be right there at the end. So something like that, I think, is pretty solid. So we'll control click to place those. We'll grab a nice big oak tree for that spot and a nice big oak tree for that spot. And immediately that just completely transforms that space. It looks so much better. Now, down here, I do feel like we should have some kind of signage to show what this is, but I'm not really too sure that we have much in the way of options for signs on this thing. We could, if we wanted to, use the sort of motorway overhead signs and pretend that they maybe say what I want them to say. We have a city parks sign. I really don't think we have much. We have a ferry line billboard. We have this billboard right here, but I don't think we're gonna have too much that's really going to, you know, fill the void, I guess. Obviously, I could probably go to the workshop and find a billboard that says recycling center, but I'm kind of really enjoying just grabbing things that exist in the game and pretending and imagining that they maybe do the thing that I want them to do. So I think with that in mind, the best thing we're going to be able to do is probably use either this nature reserve sign, which could probably go, well, I don't really know where it could go. I guess it could go here, right? So we could put a nature reserve sign right about there, so you see it as you're coming in. And I guess they should probably have one here as well, so you can sort of see it as you're coming up and sort of going that way. We'll imagine there's an arrow that points to the right. In fact, maybe it should be up here instead. That's well, we'll do it that way. We'll pretend that there's an arrow pointing that way, and this one signposts it as well. And honestly, I kind of do want to do the overhead thing. I think that's kind of cool looking, even if it is actually a highway thing. We can just imagine that, you know, it has information on it that's important for whoever is entering the facility. It's just an extra little bit of detail. It just looks kind of cool and kind of interesting. And what I could also do is get some kind of barrier. We could do a couple of these guys so that this thing can actually be closed, which we could imagine it probably would be. At nighttime, for example, we could imagine that this place would probably be closed. So we'll get a couple of barriers there, and I want to make sure those guys are nice and level, so we'll go ahead and select both and get them to be the same height, which I think they already are, so that's perfect. Rotate ever so slightly so they're actually exactly where I want them, which is going to be about there. And all I'm going to do is just copy and paste these guys to here. And I'm going to do the same all the way down here as well, because obviously, you know, City Skylines traffic isn't going to go the wrong way on a one-way road, but if we imagine realistically, if someone wanted to get in here, they could, if they really wanted to, use the one-way road. So we'll go ahead and set these guys up just like that. We'll go ahead and get these guys to be nice and level as well. They're actually all a little bit off right now. So something a bit like that, we'll just raise them up to, I guess about there is fine. And I suppose, since no one's going to be walking out of here anyway, we probably should get some kind of little fence or something that goes right up to those guys. So I think I'll use this, since it's kind of perfect for it. So I can just use the node selections, I can copy this, I can rotate it ever so slightly, and just plop it right about there. And then all I need to do is extend it to, say, there. Extend this side to about there. And then if I just grab both and lower to this height, that's pretty good, actually. I'm actually kind of okay with that. And there we go. We have a recycling center. It's got its waste processing complex. It's got 2 landfill sites. It's got 4 recycling centers. It's got a warehouse. Not that it needs one, but it has one. It has a bunch of parking and a bunch of trees, some curbs and some fences just to decorate the space, to set the space in this part of the land. And I'm actually quite pleased with how this whole thing has turned out. I think it's going to help us out in a pretty big way, especially once we get over to Nerdholm City itself and start to remove some of the old recycling centers. And that is exactly what I'm going to go ahead and do right about now. Like I said towards the start of the video, there are 9 recycling centers in here. So what we can do is go 1 and 2 to take out those ones. We can take out these guys as well, take out these guys as well. And honestly, I think I'm going to take out all of them just to get a really clear picture of how our garbage processing actually is across the entire map. And it looks like having no recycling centers in here is actually perfectly fine, because of how much we have going on down here. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to leave no garbage processing in Willow Hills, but that's really good because it means that the waste processing plant is doing exactly what I wanted it to do. Now, I do want to stress that I do want a waste transfer facility to exist over this way, and so I think what we'll do is try and find a good little spot for it. And honestly, right here is pretty good. So let's go ahead and move this firehouse to, say, there. And we'll move this police station to, say, there. And what we can do is place this waste processing plant right about there. And so this guy can go out and collect garbage and then store it. And then we can have the transfer trucks come by and pick it up from the industrial site, which I think is going to be really good for us. So this is kind of perfect. The only issue is the space around this not being full of stuff. So let's, well, actually, no, I'm not going to detail this because I do at some point want to essentially rebuild Willow Hills into something else. Now, I should probably talk about the fact that there's not enough workers in Willow Hills right now, which is a bit of a problem. It's a bit of a major problem, but that has actually been made worse by an ongoing death wave across all of the city. We're down below 40,000 people. We were comfortably above that at one point. So essentially, once the population climbs again, I think this space will be okay. And I'm kind of willing to wait for that. Now, in other news, I do want to have a look at how traffic is moving out of this space. So if we go in here and we go to this option, traffic routes, we can click here and we can see all of the public transport and cargo vehicles, which is not exactly what I'm looking for, but fair enough, hitting the highway, and yeah, they're splitting. Some of them are going this way, some of them are going this way, some of them are going this way, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Now, I'd like to see what these guys are doing. So they are actually going in a bunch of different ways, which is interesting. We got some coming from this way. We've got these guys sort of coming from that way, which is great. What are you doing? You're coming in from over here, which is a good little bit of filtering. You are annoyingly doing exactly the same thing. You are not doing exactly the same thing. And you are sort of doing exactly the same thing. The point is that all of these vehicles have the ability to spread out and do their thing and go to different places. And it's just going to be better for traffic, I think, because this roundabout is going to be considerably less busy. In fact, we can look at this whole space and just see that it's already considerably less busy. There's far fewer of these biofuel garbage trucks in all of these spaces, and that's what we're looking for. We don't need a million of them. We just need this waste processing plant. And so with all of that done, and with us losing about $6,000 every week, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for today. I'm pretty sure this episode's going to turn out a bit shorter than a bunch of the most recent City Skylines episodes, but there is a reason for that. And the reason is that I'm going to try to have an episode of Nerdholm every day this week. So the episodes will be a little bit shorter. They're going to be a little bit more focused on individual projects like this waste processing plant. And that's where you come in, because I need your help. I need ideas and suggestions and things you would like to see built in Nerdholm. This waste processing plant is something that I've been sitting on for a little while, but I've had suggestions for a regional airport, a domestic airport, an international airport, all from Twitter. I've had other suggestions on Discord to build a countryside with farms. I've had suggestions to build more walkable, pedestrianized entertainment districts. But I want to know what the rest of you want to see, and we can collaborate. We can work together to build Nerdholm into the best city that I've ever built on this channel over the course of the last almost 8 years of Cities Skylines. So leave your suggestions in the comments below, and like I said, that's going to do us for today. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.